Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Way Podcast, where we talk about Yahweh and how to live life His way. Today, I have a very special guest with me. This is my friend Nick, and we will just be going through his story today. But before we get into the episode, please go follow the Instagram page, _way_pod, where I keep you updated. And also, we had merch drop last week, so thank you to everyone who has ordered a piece of merch. But also, if you haven't ordered it yet, go do that. I think that's it. All right, let's get right into today's episode. Okay, everyone, this is Nick. So how we met was the Jenny's. Actually, Lala told me that she introduced us months before that. Do you remember that?
First time I met Lila was at the bowling alley. I think it's called the Pin. What is it? The Green Pin? Something in West Midtown.
I don't know.
I don't think I met you there, but I know we met through Carlton and Felipe. Was kind of where my mind goes first.
Yeah, that was where in my head, I'm like, that is where we met. But then Lila was like, no, Victoria, I introduced y'all months ago at the Friendsgiving Collective. And I was like,
oh, okay.
I don't remember that. That's why I was curious if you remember. But anyways, so we met a few months ago now at just through young adults at my church. And I always joke because all of my guests are from young adults, like literally every single one. And so, I have just enjoyed every second of knowing Nick, and he is just like, I could talk to him all day and has an amazing story. And I just want y'all to hear from him so bad. And so I'm so glad that he's here. So you have any opening words?
I would say, thank you for the opportunity to have me on here, Victoria.
Anytime.
It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and hearing your story, and just so glad we get to have this divine appointment together.
Yeah.
And dive deeper, and also broadcast it to all your listeners. And I hope this talk is just healing for anybody to hear my story and dive deeper. So very excited.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're here. I guess, where do we start? From the beginning?
I guess from the beginning.
Okay, let's do it.
So before I start, one of the pastors, Grant, at Passion City, I was at one of the core classes. And he had briefly just mentioned something. He's like, write your story out. From start to beginning, write your story on a piece of paper and look at it every day. And I just did that a couple days ago, and I was like, wow, there's so much power to writing your story out and just seeing every season of life and reflecting on that season of life. So I guess starting from the beginning was really, I came from a very loving family, good morals, just all love.
Yeah.
Right. And was so blessed to grow up in that family. And it's so amazing to just appreciate that today. You know, I was writing a letter to my grandma the other day, and she got the letter, and she's like, Nick, this is so cute. Thank you for writing me this letter. And she wrote me a letter too. And, it really started there. So, just a very loving family. How we expressed our emotions was my brother and I would fight, you know.
Okay. Same in my household.
So a lot of, I didn't know where to put the emotion, right? It was just a lot of conflict, and a lot of just really emotions and a lot of insecurity came in my life my 6th grade in middle school. And I didn't know what to do with these emotions. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know. Yeah. And I developed these habits in a amazing book that I read about a year ago by Craig Rochelle. It's Winning the War in Your Mind. And he talked about these ruts that we create with our patterns, how we think. And it's so amazing to reflect on this. And today I was just thinking about this in 6th grade, I started developing these patterns of kind of insecurity and trying to be liked by a lot of people. And I just had so much just pressure on me. I didn't know where to put it. And I kind of put it and put my smile on my face and being liked and trying to be liked by everyone. And I was big into sports. I love sports and found a lot of community in sports, but this whole pattern kind of stayed with me throughout through middle school, and then going into high school, and really kind of everything. And throughout this whole time, it was all that kind of insecurity led me into, well, I was putting my identity into worldly things, because I didn't know about a relationship and Jesus running after me for a relationship. Right?
Yeah.
We were in the world, our Bible study, right, when I was growing up, was we'd all get together and smoke weed and drink before we'd go to Bible study. And in high school, and this kind of pattern of putting my identity into, whether it be partying and looking at porn, looking at just different things, and that leading to sexual immorality and like all this negative thinking, all those patterns is digging deeper and deeper, and having no idea where to put that as an outlet. And really everything kind of came to crumbling, like I mentioned, telling my story before. In sophomore year, I got a DUI.
You didn't tell me that.
I got a DUI when I was 15 in high school, and everything leading up to that moment, stealing money from my mom to go buy pot, stealing alcohol from Kroger to go on the weekend and drink. It was every weekend we'd plan like a big outing, guys, we're gonna throw in, or and that DUI happened, and I saw so much disappointment from my family, but it also, looking back, is the biggest blessing of my life. And because that just opened the floodgates. I started going to outpatient therapy at first to make it look better for my track record.
Yeah.
And it became, okay, it's okay to be vulnerable, you know, because on household, we weren't vulnerable all the time, you know, growing up.
Yeah.
So it really just opened these floodgates of like, wow, everything, all the sinful things I did. I remember specifically one night sitting in my living room and just opening up about everything. I mean, all the money I was stealing from my mom, to all the confusion of sexual immorality and thinking like this. And I mean, just, so it just was so hard to get it off my chest. And that was like the first step of vulnerability in my story. And I just wanted to kind of highlight that, because
what age were you at this point?
I was 15. It was 10 days before I got my driver's license.
Okay, so you were driving without a driver's license.
That's right. I was stealing cars, being a little.
Gotcha. I can't even picture you doing this, but
yeah. So I mean, kind of going up from there, about a year of sobriety and just a lot of growth, but still, I didn't know where to put all these thoughts. Right. Like I expressed everything, but I mean, everything things pop up, and I still didn't know what to just confess those. And so I knew of vulnerability, and I was still hanging around the same, the friend group through school that I was doing all these events with, and I love them to death today. But I still didn't know where to put those thoughts. And about a year after, I just kind of went back in the same thing.
Yeah.
Into those old habits and that old way of thinking. And that led through all the way to college.
So at any point, like, have you known Jesus yet, or have you heard of Jesus, or?
Heard of Jesus, yes.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, Bible study.
Yes.
Like in high school. So
yeah.
I would go to Sunday services, but I just really didn't understand.
Right.
Didn't understand, but I knew of Jesus. I knew this was a good thing to be around.
Yeah.
But just didn't understand him running after a relationship with me.
Right.
And kind of fast forward to, I guess, college, kind of starting college. Man, I guess jumping right into I really just going to kind of get in my senior year when I had my first kind of mentor talk about a relationship with Jesus. Good friend Joe from Chattanooga, who's been a mentor to me, and he took me to Calvary Chapel in Chattanooga, and first to a men's group, and I just got to see
Wait, have you seen Jesus Revolution, the movie?
I haven't, but he told me about it.
I was about to say, yeah, Calvary Chapel's in that movie.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay.
Sorry, continue. I just love that movie. It's the best movie ever. You need to watch it.
Yeah. But he took me in a room with older guys, very mature gentlemen, just having this tender heart for God, and I was like, what is this place like? And it was so attractive. It just drew me in.
And this was your senior year?
This was my senior year in college.
Okay.
And kind of giving some overview of kind of my college it was kind of the same negative pattern. I was growing, but it was like
Yeah.
trying to build like a foundation just off. It was just trying to build a house off a shaky foundation because I still didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know the power of the blood, right? Like I didn't know
Right.
that there was no condemnation, within,
Yeah.
within Jesus. And I was I was not being gentle myself, and I wasn't being gentle to those around me.
Mm.
And like I mentioned before we started talking, was I was trying to shape people, which wasn't gentle, right? I was trying to shape friends around me, my relationship, and in not being gentle to myself, I wasn't being gentle to these people. Specifically, my girlfriend at the time, she would express just concerns and her day, and I'd be like, well, did you look at it this way? I was trying to fix her problem, which wasn't gentle at all. And then she started closing off because it's like, I don't, he's not going to listen to me. So why am I going to tell him? Right. And so, I mean, really when I was saved the day after that men's group, I gave my life to Jesus. I was saved and, kind of raised my hand in the auditorium, the auditorium, but, just the, I guess you call it auditorium. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did I totally get rid of these negative patterns? Absolutely not. Right. But it was just like, okay, I know this higher power. I know Jesus wants to have a relationship with me. And really mentors started coming in my life from Joe to my uncle who came in my life about sophomore year and has just a tremendous story and has been so impactful to me and guiding me through scripture and really bringing this level of vulnerability and just a tender heart to my family. And we've just connected so deeply. And I mean, really kind of shooting off from senior year. I was, kind of in college. I know I'm kind of hovering around senior year and jumping to different parts, but sophomore year, I really kind of grab a hold of this whole concept of real estate and kind of financial freedom through real estate and building kind of everything off a shaky foundation, right? Like when I'd have overwhelming thoughts, I'd be like, okay, let me just go work more. Or, okay, let me just like take, different supplements and things to kind of funnel, like smoke weed and then go work more. It's just like this really weird, just kind of, I didn't let myself process and I wasn't gentle and I just didn't keep peace, and it definitely showed in my actions throughout there. And like we were talking about controlling, kind of have that controlling atmosphere. I didn't want to really work for anybody kind of coming out of school. And my girlfriend at the time moved up to, she had this beautiful passion to get into medical sales. And she moved to Boston. And I was like, okay, I'm going to move to Boston after school and just go buy property in Knoxville and live up with her in Boston, and kind of figuring out my relationship, but still kind of building wealth and having like, I'm going to do this and like, this is the right path, and going out there and everything. I heard this quote the other day of, when you try to bury sin alive, it comes back even harder.
Yeah, that is so true.
So I was up there for 3 months, and everything we've talked about, to not being gentle in conversations and trying to control and trying to shape and being so scared to dive into my sins and confess those, it was just not a very it's not a very loving situation. It wasn't filled with love and gentleness. It was more kind of confusion, and it was more just, I don't know, kind of deepness of one another. So I had this like burning sensation of like, okay, I know I need to continue my relationship with Jesus and actually start to get into the Word. And but I also had this very sharp edge on me too, of not being gentle. And it really can't.
You keep going back to gentleness.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that just a little bit more?
Yeah.
Like, the one example of like trying to fix your girlfriend at the time's situation, is there anything else that was like defined like not being gentle? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just not being a listener, not being just like a supporter.
Okay.
And kind of going off that, like, I mean, as simple as like, you know, cooking dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like, okay, I need to do this, and I'll do that later.
Yeah.
It's just kind of putting myself first. It wasn't that serving mentality.
Gotcha.
So that's why I was trying to encapsulate that all in gentleness. But
Gotcha.
I mean, you asking that question is this. So it wasn't being a serving boyfriend whatsoever, or a serving friend, or a loving son, like serving my family. It was just kind of all me.
Right.
And that's what I kind of meant by being gentle. Man, I kind of want to just kind of light year 2 kind of falling on my face, because that's when really
Sorry, I'm laughing. Continue.
That's when kind of the vulnerability really kicked in. Was like I said, I was pursuing kind of real estate and being selfish and self-centered. And I was away, and a lot of emotions had built up in her, and same with me, and I just didn't know where to put those. And and everything came out at one time of us having a conversation. It was so beautiful too. It was a hard conversation to have, but it was such a reality check to how I was treating her and how I was treating myself, and how I was treating my family and loved ones around me. It was so powerful. My brother called me and said, I don't even know who my brother is right now. He's just like this self-centered, he didn't say this, but I knew he was kind of trying to say was, he's like, who are you? You know, like, where are you taking yourself? And I moved back to Nashville at the time. So I'm out of Boston. I'm in Nashville. When I was in Nashville, I was invited to go to church with my uncle and aunt. And it's an amazing church called Church of the City in Franklin, Tennessee. And that's when I really started to dive in the word kind of deeper with my uncle, and just really have those conversations of like, okay, this is, and it was really somebody kind of speaking into my, the season of life I was in, kind of giving me a perspective of like, okay, I've kind of put a lot of energy into worldly things, and I just need to kind of be graceful of myself and just kind of take a reflection period of like, okay, which is the right way to go? That really led my journey down, growing up with Jesus, and I got baptized in April. So I got back in March and then got baptized in April.
Wow.
And really a book that changed my life was Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. And it just talked about our relationship with our Heavenly Father. Like it's okay to come just completely surrender to Him. It's okay to have these kind of overwhelming emotions, and crawl at the Heavenly Father's feet. You know, and just it's okay to be sensitive. It's okay to be vulnerable. And being baptized and learning more about my relationship with Jesus, and then getting an opportunity to come to here in Atlanta and joining a amazing community group, and also reflecting on my situation as a whole, and just being vulnerable with a bunch of guys about just what's happening in life and what we're struggling with. And that has just created a wholeness in me that I've never experienced in my life. To feel whole in yourself and unity with God. And
it's an amazing feeling.
It is. And it's not saying I don't have, mess ups and
for sure.
And so I think I've covered kind of everything with my story.
At what point was it when you got baptized because you said when you first got saved the day after, was it Joe and Chattanooga?
Yeah.
And you were falling back into like your old ways. At what point did your old ways kind of like take a turn and you started not falling as much?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I would say it was those when I say old ways, like old habits that I continue, and I was trying to build like new habits on top of those old habits.
Gotcha.
Without stripping out those old habits.
Yeah.
Still smoking weed, still, getting intimate with my girlfriend at the time, and kind of putting that over my relationship with God, and just being whole with Him, like treating my body like a temple. I mean, so it was trying to build like all new habits on top of old habits that I was still doing. So I was still just like going around that same circle and circle and circle.
Can you elaborate a little bit and just like tell people how much like this community that you have here in Atlanta, how it has shaped you and changed you and made you better? Because I feel like a lot of people, I think people hear that we need community, but they don't understand why. And I think when people don't understand why, it like stops them from going to seek community because they feel like they don't need it, or, you know, and they don't see the value in it, you know? And you are a part of an amazing group of men at our church. And so I would love for you to share how that has like made you better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just brings like a smile on my face. What this community has been in my life is, you know, I think you get out of community what you put into it. And like how vulnerable you get and how real you get is what you're going to get. Right. And once you allow people to pour into your life and to allow them to give you perspective, and like, for example, our leader, Clayton, him giving perspective on the perspective of my relation. I mean, just him giving me insight and perspective of seasons he's gone through in relationships and his stories and his background. That's the beautiful part of community, is when you have 30, 40 guys in the room who have been, most likely have been through your situation, and they get to pour into your situation of things they learned, revelations they've had about relationships moving forward. And I love to talk about a group of like, everybody comes in a different level of faith. Like a faith is a muscle. Like, and we have some guys who've been 10 years in their faith and that are married, that have kids, and they just talk about what they've learned and how beautiful of a process when you're just staying whole in unity with God throughout the whole process.
Do you have any like practical tips to tell people who they just gave their life to Jesus yesterday and today they're trying to figure out what to do? Like, what would you tell a new believer who is trying to navigate it and trying to figure it out? Like the first like few steps.
I just had this revelation myself, and it's starting in Romans and going to Jude, and I'm on my way right now. And I think the epistles is
I see what you're saying.
Just a practical way how to live, and like the grace that he has just freely given us, and what that looks like in every day, and how important it is to be surrounded in community of believers. And that has been so impactful to me. To start going through those letters and be like, okay, Paul wrote these letters to cities, and Jesus was writing through Paul to these people. So Jesus is writing these letters to me. And I have an opportunity to read them. And that's amazing. That changed my whole drive to start reading them. And so that is my most practical tip of going from Romans to Jude, and having a community to ask questions and to have different muscles of faith around you to bounce those questions off of. And I think that would just completely strengthen your faith and have just grow in understanding in your relationship with Jesus.
I've told them before, but that was the biggest thing for me after I gave my life to Jesus, was community, and how he just completely plunged me into this community of other athletes in my college. And I still think, like, to this day, if I did not have those girls, I would not be where I am today. And I know I'm not like discrediting Jesus, but that community just did something in me. And immediately when I gave my life to him, and I think people just really underestimate the power of having other believers around you, and want to live an isolated walk and do it alone. And that is just not, you can do it, but it will be hard.
One of my biggest things is trying to control the situation, right? And be like, okay, you know, we were just talking about isolation, but I mean, so going into isolation and just almost locking yourself in and just being in your own thoughts is so dangerous. Just stay in your head, you're dead.
Yeah.
Stay in your head, you're dead. I'm just saying, it's like,
so true.
I live that day in, day out. And I'm like, you know, before I came in here, I was like, I gotta call my buddy Felipe and just talk to him and express what I'm thinking. Like, it is so fruitful and just such a blessing that we get to call people in our community and say, hey, this is what's going through my head.
Yes.
Can I bounce this off you?
Yes.
You know, like, can I talk to you about this? And like, am I being self-centered? Am I being gentle? Am I being loving? Am I being life-giving?
Yeah.
And to have that conversation with your community, it can be uncomfortable.
It can,
but it is so powerful.
It is,
and that is life.
When
you stay in your head, you're dead.
No, when I think too, with having conversations with people who are kind of like on the same wavelength, God speaks so clearly through these people, and it's like revelation after revelation, and it's just the most fruitful, best conversations. And I think back to like, even like pre-Jesus, like all we talked about was boys and parties. And I'm just like, what? Before like Christ. Before Christ. And I'm just like, what the heck? Like, just thinking about that, it's funny now, but like thinking about that, it's so crazy because like I never experienced fruitful, holy conversations. Yeah. And now, since that's like a way of life almost every day, it's like just thinking about that time, it's like I could never go back. You know, like I never want to have empty conversations. That's one of the reasons I love talking to you, because you just ask all the right questions and always somehow getting deep. And I just love that about you. And I love conversations like that. And I just think that that's, you know, I've actually met up one-on-one too with some of the family group girls that I lead. And some of them have struggled with like their friends outside of the group, and they're just like, all they talk about is boys. Like, I don't want to talk about that anymore, you know? And it's crazy. Just the conversations that come from people who have the Holy Spirit. Yeah. And God really uses all of us as vessels and really speaks to all of us just in the everyday conversations. And so I just think that's also another beautiful thing about community, is just how God just uses us and speaks through us when we're not even like really seeking him, but he'll still use us and speak. Yeah. But I guess my last question is just do you have any like last words of encouragement for the people?
Yeah. Going off, your question is, go where God is. You know, whether it be a men's group, and you're like, I don't know if I want to join a men's group. I love being by myself. And go where God is, because you will find life in that group. To those conversations, to those deep conversations, that is life. That's being whole. Yeah. That's being in unity with God. Yeah. And that is just such a fruitful relationship when you get to have real conversations with guys and girls that are in your stage of life, in your wavelength, and also people that are at different stages of their faith too.
Yeah, that's very true.
Because you have so many perspectives pouring into your life. Like, why would you not want to have a perspective that took 5 years to get? It's like reading a book. Yeah. You know, I'm not saying just read books. I'm saying get a little mixture. Yeah. But I'm saying, why would you not take that advice? It took 5 years to figure out. Yeah. It's like, I went through that relationship, and I see this is happening in your relationship. This is what I learned. And I didn't want to take that advice at the first time. Yeah. But it kept repeating consistently over and over again. And I take that as Jesus is talking through this person to me. Yeah.
I actually was going to tell you, since the game night a few weeks, or whenever we had the game night here, and you mentioned that book, The Elimination of Hurry or whatever.
Oh, by John Mark Comer.
Yeah. I somehow heard it every other day since that day. And I think that God wants me to read it. But also, I am such a hurrier person. Yeah. I know it's going to convict the heck out of me. But that is just an example of how ever since you said that, it's been on repeat somehow in some space. I was listening to a podcast today, and they mentioned the book, and it's just like so crazy how pay attention to repetition, because that is a lot of times when God is speaking. But anyways, continue. Sorry.
And just going off that is just you become what you focus on.
That is true. That is true.
And it could be a simple example is, you know, you close your eyes and you're like, okay, look for all the brown in the room, go. And like you see what it's all brown, and you close your eyes and you open them and you're like, okay, this is, or you just like look for brown, and you look for brown and you can see it because you're starting to focus on it.
Yeah. And
I would just say, start focusing on where God is.
Yeah.
Around you. And in my experience, and I'm newer in my faith journey, you know, a year and a half, 2 years, and that is life. That is that is a blissful life, a forever, infinite return on investment life.
Yeah.
And I love this sermon by Louis Giglio about doing good deeds, and, you know, being the one that will kneel down with somebody who's hurt, being the giver, being the one to go out of his way to serve somebody and say, I believe in you. I believe in what you're doing. That is just heavenly ROI that will go so far. You tell one person, I believe in you, and they go tell 1 million people that they believe in them.
Yeah.
It's so impactful.
It is. I almost got just teary-eyed just now because I think a lot of people lack, you know, encouragement. All people need is just a smile, or just for someone to say, you can do this, you know? And people can go months and months and months without hearing a word of encouragement from people. Yeah. And I think, you know, that it's sad. I think it's really hitting home with me because my love language is words of affirmation. And so I'm like, I think it's just so sad that people can just go, you know, months without hearing just something positive. And I think that is just, I think that's something as Christ followers we can do better at, is even if this is someone outside of your community or like a stranger, encourage them. Like, just say, hey, I like your shoes, or, you know, compliment them, or I don't know. I think we could definitely, as a collective community, do better with our words towards one another, just because, especially on social media, I just see a lot of us arguing with each other and, you know, calling this pastor a false prophet and this pastor. And it's just like, where's the life in our tongue, you know? But I am just, this is the second time I've heard your story, but there was new bits and pieces in there. But I don't know. I think your story is amazing, but I also just love the way that you communicate it. You know what I mean?
Thank you. So I admire you for your ability just to have a podcast on a weekly basis and just put yourself out there and just be so truthful. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful what you're doing.
Thank you.
You're a beautiful person, and it's just so amazing what
Thank
you're
you
doing.
so much.
And I believe in you.
Thanks. It's definitely the Holy Spirit. I'm giving him all the credit, just the discipline and stuff to even do this weekly. But thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you. But yeah, y'all, that is the end. Thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far, and do you want me to plug your Instagram or no?
I'm not a big Instagram guy, but you can put my Instagram out there. I think it's Nick Galbraith 7.
Yeah,
I think my Instagram handle is.
Go follow him if you want, but he's not a big social media boy. But anyways, yeah. All right, guys, thanks for listening, and I will talk to y'all next week. Bye.